Is it still called being on the run if you're in a car? What about a plane? I'm your host Yusuf, and these are 10 criminals in the United States who are still on the run. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, let's get to running. Number 10, Jason Derek Brown. On November 29, 2004, Robert Keith Palomares, a 24-year-old armored car guard, was carrying the weekend deposits outside the AMC Theater at 4915 East Ray Road in Phoenix. At approximately 10 a.m., a hooded gunman ambushed and shot Palomares with a .45 caliber semi-automatic Glock. 5 out of 6 bullets fired struck Palomares in the head. Although armed, Palomares had no time to defend himself. The gunman took a money bag containing $56,000 in cash, ran into a nearby alley, and fled the scene on a bicycle. Soon after being identified as a suspect, Brown fled from Arizona to Henderson, Nevada. He continued on to Las Vegas, where he swapped his BMW M3 for a black Cadillac Escalade he had in storage. I personally would keep the M3, but to each their own. He then drove to Orange County, California, where he stayed with some relatives until December 6, 2004, when FBI agents carrying out an arrest warrant missed him by 1 hour. Brown apparently used his credit card at a gas station in southern Orange County, traveled to San Diego near the Mexican border, and then went all the way to Portland, Oregon. After this, the FBI states that Brown became a ghost and went completely off-grid. Number 9, John Paul Sr. John Lee Paul is an American racing driver, convicted felon, and fugitive. After his racing career, which saw him win both US Classic Endurance races, 24 hours at Daytona, and 12 hours of Sebring, he served a 15-year prison sentence for a variety of crimes, including substance trafficking and shooting a federal witness. On April 19, 1983, an individual named Stephen Carson was shot in the chest, abdomen, and leg in Crescent Beach, Florida. Carson had been given immunity in a substance trafficking case. He testified that Paul Sr. had approached him, ordered him into the trunk of his car, and shot him 5 times when he fled rather than comply. In 2001, he disappeared on his boat while being sought for questioning by officials regarding the disappearance of his ex-girlfriend. Paul's status is still unknown. He is sometimes known in the motorsport scene as John Paul Sr. or John Paul. Number 8, John Ruffo. Ruffo faced a 150-count indictment charging him with bank fraud, money laundering, wire fraud, and conspiracy. His bail was set at an unusually high $10 million as he was considered a flight risk. As nearly all of Ruffo's known assets and accounts were frozen by the FBI, most of his immediate family put up their homes as collateral to secure his pretrial release. Ruffo was found guilty on all counts and was sentenced to 17 years in prison. In November 1998, Ruffo failed to turn himself over to the U.S. Marshals Service to begin serving his sentence. His image was captured on CCTV cameras taking money out of an ATM on the afternoon he was to report, but he was not seen or heard from since. In his wife's last communication with him on the morning of his disappearance, he told her he was meeting with a parole officer but never returned. His car was later recovered by the FBI, abandoned at JFK Airport. 3 months after Ruffo's disappearance, the homes of his wife, mother, mother-in-law, and others were seized by the government as a forfeiture of bond collateral, effectively making them all homeless. Number 7, Roberto Solis. Roberto Solis is a convicted executioner, armored car robber, and criminal. He has more than 30 aliases, including Pancho Aguila, a pen name he used in prison while writing poetry. He disappeared in October 1993. Solis served 23 years in prison for executing Louis Dake, a security guard, during an armed truck robbery in 1969. He was given parole in 1992. Following his release, he met Heather Tallchief, who became employed by a security company at his urging. In October 1993, following Solis' instructions, Tallchief drove away in an armored vehicle containing $3.1 million. The two subsequently went on the run and had a child. Tallchief gave herself up in September 2005, and on March 30th, 2006, she was sentenced to 63 months in prison and released on parole in June 2010, but Solis is still at large. Number 6, Adam Emery. On the evening of August 31st, 1990, Adam Emery's 1984 Ford Thunderbird was sideswiped by a passing vehicle while he and his wife Alina were at a Rocky Point restaurant with another couple. Enraged, Emery mistakenly chased down the wrong car and stabbed the driver until they passed with a military knife. The slaughtered driver was 20-year-old Jason Bass. Emery was subsequently released on bail after spending 8 months in jail while his lawyer negotiated putting up money and property as bail. Emery was offered a plea deal in exchange for lesser charges of voluntary manslaughter and a prison term of 5 to 7 years, but he refused to accept the deal, insisting that the ending was in self-defense. Analysis conducted using paint chips from both vehicles determined that someone else had hit Emery. On November 10, 1993, Emery was convicted of second-degree slaughter and was to await formal sentencing. Emery was facing up to 25 years in prison for the slaughter, but hadn't been formally sentenced. Emery was released on bail once again and subsequently disappeared hours later, along with his wife. They both mailed notes saying that they both had harmed themselves beyond repair, and their car was found abandoned on the Claiborne-Pell-Newport Bridge. Prior to their disappearance, the couple were last seen at a Burger King and purchasing wearable exercise weights at the Kelly Sporting Goods store in Cranston, Rhode Island. In 1994, a skull later identified as Alina's was found in the Narragansett Bay below the Newport Bridge the same day. Coincidentally, the houses put up as Adam Emery's bail were being repossessed. In 2004, Emery was declared legally removed. However, there have been multiple sightings of him, and in 2010, the FBI placed him on their most wanted list. They believe Emery may have traveled to Florida or Italy and have stated that they have no reason to believe Emery is gone and dusted. Number 5. Glen Stewart Godwin. In 1980, Godwin was living in Palm Springs, California, working as a self-employed tool salesman, a mechanic, and a construction worker with no discernible criminal history. Godwin and his roommate, Frank Soto Jr., planned to rob a substance dealer and pilot, Kim Robert LaValle, who was once a friend of theirs. Godwin and Soto lured LaValle back to their condominium, where Soto held him. Godwin punched and kicked him, tried to strangle him, then ultimately stabbed LaValle 26 times with his butcher knife. During the trial, however, the prosecution said that Godwin was using a serrated edge knife. A butcher's knife was not mentioned. After the execution, Godwin and Soto loaded the body into a truck and set off for the desert. Godwin tried to blow up the evidence by using homemade explosives strapped to the body. The explosion was intended to disguise the execution of LaValle. On August 3, 1980, some Eagle Mountain residents found a blown-up pickup truck with the remains of a human body inside of it abandoned in the desert. Godwin fled to Mexico, where he unsuccessfully participated in the illegal substance trade. He was arrested in Puerto Vallarta, later convicted for substance trafficking in Guadalajara, Mexico, and sentenced to 7 years and 6 months in Puente Grande prison in 1991. While American authorities were working on Godwin's extradition proceedings, he allegedly executed a member of a Mexican substance cartel in prison. The new execution allegation delayed his extradition, which gave Godwin more time to execute another escape, which occurred in September 1991. Godwin is currently believed to be involved in the illicit substance trade somewhere in Latin America, having possibly used aliases such as Dennis Harold McWilliams, Nigel Lopez, and Miguel Carrera. He is considered to be armed and extremely dangerous and an obvious flight risk. The FBI is offering a reward up to $20,000 for information leading to Godwin's capture. Number 4. Michael Berrera. In February 1998, Michael Berrera robbed a bank with an accomplice. They robbed the bank of just over $20,000. 3 months later, on May 1st, 1998, Berrera and his accomplice drove to the National Republic Bank in Miami. The two men exited the stolen car and entered the bank. After the robbery was over, the two men got into the stolen vehicle. A police officer then started following them. Berrera fired a shotgun multiple times at the officer. Later that day, Berrera and his accomplice ditched the stolen car. They then stole another vehicle from a man. The accomplice in the bank robbery was arrested by Miami-Dade police. Berrera, though, managed to evade police. He later disappeared. Almost 9 years later, in March 2007, a 52-year-old woman, Randy Gorenberg, was kidnapped not long after leaving the Town Center Mall in Boca Raton, Florida on the afternoon of Friday, March 23rd. The abductor drove Gorenberg to the South County Civic Center, shot her, and tossed her body from the passenger side of her Mercedes SUV. At the time of the Gorenberg slaughter, Berrera owned a four-door Chrysler 300. An informant told the PBSO that gang members might have assisted in the Gorenberg execution. Number 3. Byron Mclaughlin. Byron Scott McLaughlin is an American former professional baseball player, alleged counterfeit shoes manufacturer, and convicted money launderer. His baseball career spanned 9 seasons, 4 of which were spent in Major League Baseball with the Seattle Mariners and the California Angels. McLaughlin, a right-handed pitcher used primarily in relief, compiled a Major League record of 16-25 with a 5.11 earned run average, 5 complete games, 16 saves, and 74 strikeouts in 378 and 1/3 innings pitched. I have no idea how baseball works, so if you guys know what that means, let me know in the comments below. After his career, McLaughlin allegedly worked in the counterfeit consumer goods industry in Mexico, making knockoff athletic footwear, which included shoes designed to look like Converse, Vans, and Adidas. In 1990, he was arrested for trafficking counterfeit shoes and money laundering. He pleaded guilty to the money laundering charges and proceeded to post bail. Before being sentenced though, McLaughlin fled and his current whereabouts are unknown. Honestly, if I could say one thing to Byron right now, I'd say, "What's up, baby? Take me out to dinner." Number 2, David Durham. At approximately 10:58 p.m. on January 23, 2011, Lincoln City police officer Stephen Dodds pulled over a 1984 Dodge pickup truck owned by David Anthony Durham of Sauvie Island, Portland, Oregon, for a routine traffic violation in Lincoln City, Oregon. During the interaction, Durham told Dodds that he was driving to a military base in California. At some point during the traffic stop, Durham shot Dodds multiple times in the chest, critically injuring him, and then fled in his vehicle heading south on Highway 101. Responding police officers spotted Durham's vehicle in Newport and disabled his vehicle with a spike strip near Waldport, just north of the LC Bay Bridge. Unable to further drive his vehicle, Durham fled on foot into the woods on the west side of the highway. Durham's dog, which was in his vehicle, fled to the east. Shortly after, a crab fisherman working by spotlight on Alcea Bay reported gunshots originating from the spit, but could not see the gunman in the darkness. 3 days after Durham's disappearance, his dog was found wandering in Waldport. At least the dog was okay. Number 1, Victor Manuel Gerena. Victor Manuel Gerena is an American fugitive wanted by the Federal Bureau of Investigations for the September 1983 White Eagle armed robbery. As a Wells Fargo employee and a member of the Boricua Popular Army of a Wells Fargo armored car facility, the $7 million in cash, roughly about $18 million as of May 2021, was the largest cash robbery in US history at that time. On May 14, 1984, Gerena became the 386th fugitive to be placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives list. He remains at large, and on April 11, 2010, became the fugitive to have spent the most time on the list, surpassing Donald Eugene Webb, who has been removed from the list on March 31, 2007 after 25 years, 10 months, and 27 days. There were no leads for many years and Webb was presumed gone. Gerena was removed from the list on December 15, 2016 after 32 years. Gerena is believed to be living in Cuba. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guessed it, next time, you guessed it again, on Crime Time, baby. Love yo faces.